So there are only 4 days left in November and NaNoWriMo. I am still about 15,000 words short on my goal for the month of 50,000 words. But all the same, I'm going to stop, take a break, and talk to you guys for a bit. "15,000 words. That seems like a lot, right? Okay, and as someone who has to write that many words in 4 days, yeah, it's a lot. But depending on what kind of genre you're writing in, 15,000 words may actually only be the beginning of your story. So that's what I want to talk about today. Word count and how many words are expected for certain genres of YA and middle grade, and a lot of the books that we love to read. Searching the internet, you'll find a lot of rules about what agents and editors expect from certain types of manuscripts in terms of word count. You'll see things like YA books should be between 55,000 and 90,000 words, with the lower end of that spectrum going towards contemporary and fantasy being on the higher end. You'll see rules like debut authors should never think about submitting anything higher than 100,000 words, because editors will often turn that away just on principle. But the more research I did, the more I found examples of these rules getting broken. So instead, what I want to do today is talk about some of the famous books that we've all read or that we've all heard about and what their word counts are, so you can kind of get a better idea of what these word count numbers actually mean. One series I always like to use as an example when I'm talking about this is Harry Potter, because we've all read them and we are all well aware of how the first 3 books in that series were smaller, middle grade length novels, and then books 4, 5, 6, and 7 exploded into these huge novels. So book 1, Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, is 77,000 words, which is pretty short, but still on the long side for middle grade. Then book 5, which is the longest book in the series, is 257,000 words, which is actually pretty big. So there is a huge discrepancy there between the lengths of books in that same series, which isn't something you'll find very often, but that Harry Potter does brilliantly, obviously. When I first heard that Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone was 77,000 words, it actually made me a little nervous. My first book, Mortality, is 81,000 words, which got me thinking, is it way too short? Is this closer to a middle grade story? But then I learned that The Hunger Games is actually even shorter than Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone at 76,000 words. And honestly, I couldn't really tell because there's such different kinds of storytelling, and the word count actually worked really well for both stories, so don't overthink it. You know that rule I mentioned earlier about debut novels needing to be less than 100,000 words? Well, Twilight was 118,000 and City of Bones was 130,000. And I don't think anyone's going to be arguing that those books shouldn't have sold. Now for a few more numbers to mull over. The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe came in at 36,000 words. The Hobbit was 95,000. Both Ender's Game and To Kill a Mockingbird finished up at about 100,000 words. And I bet you not one of those authors wrote their book worrying about what their final word count was going to be. So while it's definitely smart to be aware of what the standard range is for word count in your genre, don't worry too much about it right now. Focus all of your energy into telling the best story you possibly can. Then, once you get an agent, they can help you figure out which market you want to try to sell your book to. Then, once you get an editor, they can even take it one step further and help you decide what needs to be cut or where you can possibly add to your story in order to get it into that sweet spot. That's it for today. Good luck to anyone who is finishing up Nano this week. And don't forget to tune in on Sunday for our next Word Nerds chat, where this week we're talking about diversity.